Just after 5 o'clock, I am the doctor. So what do you think? Do you like the idea of drug testing welfare recipients? I think that's a no-brainer. Boy, that sounds simple to me. How about drug testing people who work for the government? Even your elected servants, how about drug testing them? Are you in favor of that? I wouldn't be opposed to it. Somebody that is in favor of it is Rashid Tlaib, state rep. How are you?
Hi, good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you on. Now, you say that you're all being paid through public tax dollars, just like the people on welfare, so you go ahead and test you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want to be held to the same standards. I know many of my residents that I represent have to take drug tests for their jobs. Since we're public servants and we're asking people that are on public assistance to take drug tests, I think it's important to show them that we can do it too and take the drug test ourselves.
I'm absolutely in favor. I think that's a great idea. See, I look at it as we are your employers, just like you are your employer as well. I
agree. And not only that, we make the most important decisions on behalf of families and children and seniors. And if anybody is on has a substance abuse or any kind of drug addiction, then we should and be able to handle that so that they're not making those important decisions on our behalf while they are under some sort of influence of drugs. So just like, we're trying to force, people that take public assistance to do that, I think it's very important to, be held to the same standard and do the same thing and take the same drug test that we're asking them to. Not only that, go as far as paying for that, because we're actually asking those that are on public assistance to pay for the drug test. And then after they take the drug test, then if they are on drugs, then they bump them off of assistance and then not give them any kind of help, which, I think takes it a little bit too far. I think telling them to come back in 6 months, by the way. But I think you need to go a step further and offer people some sort of substance abuse programming to be able to help them, because many of them might be parents or might be taking care of their elderly parents or are not going to be able to get off of public assistance if we're not able to get them off of drugs. But, legislators can't be forcing people to do things that they're not wanting to do themselves. We cannot be asking hundreds and thousands of people to take a drug test, to pay for a drug test, and then not be held for the same standard and to be asked to do the same thing.
See,
I'd be more than willing to take any drug test anytime, any day, and I think my colleagues should join me.
I agree with you. I've said that for years, whether it's Congress or state reps or senators, governors or presidents. I think the laws ought to apply to everybody, and you shouldn't exempt yourself from stuff. I absolutely agree with that. Are you opposed to drug testing those people on welfare, though?
I am opposed to finding if somebody has a substance abuse problem and then doing nothing about it. I don't think that's the role of, the public. I mean, I think we have a duty to try to offer assistance, because many of those people, if we don't offer them assistance, I'm not talking about public assistance. I'm talking about, oh my God, you have a substance abuse problem. Let me offer you some referral to a drug assistance, substance abuse program. Let me help you get off of those drugs. Instead of saying, oops, sorry, you're on drugs, let me let you go, and not offer any kind of assistance at all. And then they're going to end up in our correction system. I don't know how many people I've talked to say, yes, I had a substance abuse problem, that's why I'm in jail. I don't want to have to pay even more money later on as a taxpayer towards somebody being incarcerated if we don't offer them assistance while they're coming in to get public assistance now. It doesn't make any sense. These are people that need help, that we need to offer those kinds of programming and help. I mean, for a caseworker to say, sorry, you're on drugs, can't help you, leave my office, and not be able to give them a list of drug assistance places, substance abuse programs that are near their home, so they can get off of this, so they can get.
Well, what about their responsibility? What about their responsibility? They're the ones who got themselves into the mess of being, strung out on drugs.
Absolutely. And, people that are on drugs cannot make those kinds of decisions, and that's why you have caseworkers and people that get those kinds of social work degrees and get those kinds of experience so that they can able to help them get off of assistance. And you can't get off of assistance when you're on substance abuse problems and so forth. So I am just opposed to just telling them you're getting off of assistance, so farewell, and then I actually think we should track and see if they end up in our correction system, which is probably going to be 60 or 70 or 80% of the time.
Talking with State Rep Rashid Tlaib about drug testing government workers as well as those people that are getting public assistance. See, my problem is with this. I find it frustrating that I'm given the choice between either I go ahead and give people welfare while they're on drugs, or then I give them money to get off drugs. I'm always paying as the public. State Rep, that I find that very frustrating. How come I have to pay instead of saying you take care of you?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think what you're not hearing is that after they are tested positive, that we are saying to them, there's nothing we can do to help you. I don't think that is our role. I think we need to try to help them get off of assistance, and that means.
But they made the choice to get on drugs, though.
Them to programs that are already being paid by public dollars, offering them a program near their home. We're not. That's not saying, hey, let me hold your hand. Let me try to. It's not. It's actually doing the right thing and trying to help them get off of substance abuse programs. If that was my daughter, if that was my relative, I would want that for that person. Not just to say, sorry, we're going to cut you off and we're not going to help you at all. If they're going to cut people off, at least refer them to a substance abuse program in their neighborhood. These are people that are going to be living among other people that are not on drugs. I don't want them going towards trying to commit crimes and ended up in our correction system because they're on a substance abuse problem and they have drug problems and not being able to offer them any kind of assistance, so they can end up in jail and correction system and probably end up having to pay taxpayer dollars of $30,000 to $60,000 average per year.
You know, my frustrating part, even with the drug programs, and I understand what you're saying, where, okay, we already have these programs in place. I have trouble with those programs to begin with. When you're talking about drugs, yes, some people are addicted, and those are things that they don't have very much control over, but they had a control at the beginning. And unlike a disease where I end up with cancer or whatever, where I need some medical assistance, and it was through no fault of my own, those people chose to take drugs at some point.
Yeah, but I've known so many of people in my community that were born to drug addict parents. So
obviously that's a little different, though.
Either.
Well, that's a little different, though. I mean, there's a lot of people that are fine that are just going out and stealing their parents' medication or on meth right now.
Yeah, and you know, if we're saying to them that we don't care, that we don't want to help them, then go ahead and open more jails and go ahead and embargo and put all the taxpayer dollars we're trying to so-called save through taking them off of public assistance and put them in our jail system, because that's exactly what's going to happen.
No, and you're right. I mean, we've seen that at times. We recognize that a lot of times people end up in prison. We take care of them anyways. But you understand my frustration to say no matter what, I end up footing the bill for somebody that's doing something wrong. Well, I don't do illegal drugs. I don't do these things, State Rep. It's not that I'm better than them. I just have made those choices. They're making the wrong choices, and either I pay for them with the drug clinics or I pay for them that they're going to be in jail. I mean, I find that really frustrating.
It's a societal problem, and, I don't know what the right fix is, but I know that taking this approach without offering any kind of referral program to getting them off of drugs is just going to make the situation worse. Some people blame it on media. Some people blame it on, just different things that are going on in the neighborhood. Some people blame all kinds of drug addicts to all kinds of things. But one thing I know is that saying to the public that we're going to take you off of assistance if you're on drugs, and by the way, we're not going to offer any kind of list of services to try to get you off of drugs, farewell and good luck. I don't know if that's the kind of Michigan that we want. We need to get them off of assistance, and we need to try our best. I'm sure that sometimes it will work and sometimes it doesn't, but I think it's worth the families that have to live with these people on substance abuse in our neighborhoods. They deserve at least the opportunity to try to get them off of drugs.
I'm sorry,
they're going to have to live as our neighbors. They're going to have to live in our communities. We don't want them to have to do things in desperate measures to try to feed their habits.
Talking to State Rep Rashid Tlaib, and I think what a lot of people look at this as, and I understand the drug argument about being, with the drug clinics and getting people help, but a lot of people like me, we look at it and we say, wow, you have money for drugs, and yet I'm paying for your welfare. I'm providing you food, and then what money you come up with, either by scamming and reselling your benefits or whatever, you end up coming with drugs. Well, why don't you make the decision to buy food instead of drugs? And that is built on top of something that we've all seen for a long time, and that is the scams and abuse in the system, and then the people buying stuff, State Rep, that they shouldn't be buying. I see people driving some nice cars with a lot of nice stuff, and they're on food stamps.
It's really hard to try to stereotype, because there's those one incidents that we hear about that somebody has, Escalade and they're on assistance. But what's interesting to me is that one incident impacts all the people that are legitimately on assistance. My mother was on assistance, and if it wasn't for that help, I probably would not have been a graduate of high school, the first in my family, graduate of college, and now been able to go off to law school and become first in my family to, be able to get those kinds of degrees and get out of the cycle of being on assistance, right? I just don't think that those one incidents need to be used as a reflection of all these other changes that I think are going to boot off people that really do deserve our help.
But see, we all
want to get off of assistance. I know so many young people that made mistakes are trying to get out of the cycle, going to college and going to school, and they get kicked off, and when they hit that barrier, that wall, it does create a number of issues and problems within our neighborhoods, and it creates this cycle, and it buries us even more in debt. I have to tell you, many of the people that are so-called frauding the system, I kept saying to people, who makes more money off of this is the people that take the bridge cards, the people that take the WIC. These are the businesses that if you walk in, there's only one little shelf in there that offers things that will fall into the requirements for bridge card. So they come in there and they're being pushed, saying, "Oh, you want to go ahead and grab some liquor and some cigarettes? Go ahead. Don't worry, I'll put it on credit, and you bring your bridge card and take it out." So some of these local businesses are fostering this fraud.
Well, the businesses are part of it, but you can't take the individual off the responsibility, though. It's both of them.
But the Department of Human Services Auditor General, Inspector General, actually testified in committee and agreed with me that sometimes if it's not out there being pushed on to people as a choice, because for me, they're pushing alcoholism and obesity in my district, in my community, when you don't don't go after the businesses as well that are pushing it on them.
No, I agree with going after the business. I say you go after all people. I'm pretty fair, and I'm a reasonable person. But you can't say that the businesses are entrapping them. Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm just saying that they're creating a culture where that's acceptable. Let me tell you, I've called and asked the Inspector General. I probably have called more than anyone on people that I think are defrauding our state. There's an 800 number you call. I call them all the time. I say, this person so-called has assistance, and I think it needs to be investigated, and sure enough, it gets investigated. Not always am I right, but let me tell you, at least I'm participating and trying to say, because I'm fair, if you're not doing what you need to do, then you need to basically be held accountable. But I say everyone needs to be held accountable, because honestly, if you have people that do not want to do that, do not want to spend their bridge card on things that are not supposed to spend it on, but then they walk into a gas station, they walk into a party store, and they can't find food that fall under the bridge card, but they're still allowed to take a bridge card, then to me that's hypocritical. We cannot say you, gas station, can take a bridge card and WIC card, but hey, you only have one little piece of shelf there that actually qualified to be able to fit the criteria to be, for WIC and bridge card. What are we saying? We're saying we're creating this culture within our state that it's okay. And that's what's really frustrating for me. If everyone is held accountable to the same standard instead of always going after the recipients, always, that is not going to get to the core problem that we have in our state with fraud.
No, and I agree with you there. Go after all people. It seems like you want to let the recipients off the hook, though. Let me give you another example. Last night I was at the store, and legitimately, last night at the store, and in front of me was a lady, and I'm not going to go down the entire list, but she did not get one healthy thing. She got candy bars and Oreos and Cheetos and Twizzlers and Pringles and Toast Crunch and Brownie Mix, and everything bad, and she used her bridge card. Meanwhile,
Isn't it terrible?
Yes, it is.
That's why I'm saying gas stations and party stores that don't offer these.
No. This was a major grocery store. Was a major grocery store.
Okay.
And we all see that. We all see that abuse.
I guess maybe because I live in a community with 30% at or below poverty, I've seen families that are legitimately good good families very much into their faith. I see them at their churches on Sunday. I see many of them volunteer at their schools. I've seen those people that are on assistance that, had to drop out of high school because their father, their mother, got ill. How come we don't talk about those stories? I can tell you over and over again, I've had so many of my friends whose families were on assistance, and they were able to get out of that cycle, including myself, get out of that cycle. And those are the successful stories that we have to actually look at as well and say, okay, we want to continue to make sure that people do not fall through the cracks and end up in our correction system, end up on drugs, end up doing all these things, then we must try in some sort of way to try to end those cycles and then get to the core problem. I say people should be encouraged to have a job if they're going to be on assistance, encouraged to go through some sort of educational system to be on assistance. I'm for that. That to me is positive. But kicking people off with no other recourses to me is ridiculous, and it's going to cost us more and more money.
All right, it's State Rep Rashid Tlaib. I appreciate you joining me and laying out your arguments for us, okay?
Thank you so much for having me.
Have yourself a great day. She makes great points. And as I've said, I am a common sense, fair person, whether it comes to welfare or corporate welfare, whether it comes for tax breaks for people who are, living in the hood, doing drugs and whatever, or tax breaks for rich people that are supposedly building corporate headquarters or businesses or whatever. It all has to stop. It all has to stop. But I'm not going to let either side off the hook. I'm not going to make excuses and say, well, those people really aren't that bad or not the people I know. So the state rep may know a lot of good people that are on assistance and people doing the right thing. But I've known a lot of people over the years since I was a kid that was on welfare, people in my community, heck, a lot of distant relatives I know, and every damn one of them was screwing the system. Every damn one of them was taking something that they shouldn't have gotten or selling their benefits or something else. Yes, you have to go after the people that are scamming the system, those gas station owners or supermarkets or whatever else. You have to go after them, and you have to stop it. But you have to go after the recipients as well. I want to get your calls, 248-356-1270. 248-356-1270. Drug test, welfare recipients, are you with me? How about like the state rep? Do you expand that to anybody that works for the government, like state reps and senators and governors? See, she may agree or believe that they should drug test them, but the real reason she said that is to make a political point. It's a clever political point, and I give it to her for that. To saying, okay, if you're going to drug test those welfare recipients, why not go after state reps and governors and everything else? It is a great political point, but it is nevertheless a political point. Because she said they're all being paid through public tax dollars, the recipients of welfare, or even the governor. And she's right. I have no problem drug testing them. I have not a problem. As an employer, if I owned a business, I likely would drug test people. I don't want them doing drugs at work. And I am an employer just like you and everybody else who pays taxes. So I don't have a problem. But there is a difference between the state rep I just had on and a welfare recipient. And the difference is the state rep earns her money. The governor earns his money. We pay them to do a job. The people on welfare, we pay them for nothing. We pay them to sustain their life, and it becomes a culture. That's the difference. It's not that I care if those people are getting high. I don't. I don't care. In fact, I care more if the governor, whoever is getting high, because I'm paying him. He's an employee. People on public assistance, if they're not on public assistance, I don't care. Smoke up if you want to. You can do whatever the hell you want. My philosophy, leave me alone. But if I'm paying for you because you say you are so hungry that you need money for food, Doc, I'm starving. I need food. And yet you can roll on up in a new car. If you have money for drugs or alcohol, then you don't need my money for food, and that is the difference. If you have an iPhone, I don't even have an iPhone because I can't afford it. And yet you can afford an iPhone while I'm giving you money for food, then you don't need my money for food. You take the new rims on your new car. You take the money for the drugs or the spice or the alcohol. You take the money for the iPhone that you're rolling around with and put that to buying some food. And that way I'll pay less money to the system buying you food, and the money that I have earned, I can put to buying whatever I want. 248-356-1270. Let's go and get some calls here. Let's go to Bob, Oak Park. How are you?
Hey, I really like your show. I just turned it on, Doc, and I really like it.
Thank you, sir.
This woman used a term that just drives me crazy. She said, I have friends that made mistakes. This made mistakes. You make a mistake when you go to the store and you expected to buy fat-free milk and you bought whole milk, okay? This constant use of the term make mistakes for people that do the same wrong behaviors over and over and over again. They'll have children out of wedlock that they have absolutely no idea how to pay for. And then they'll say, well, I made some mistakes, so therefore I can't figure out how to make a living, or who's going to watch my kids while I make my living because I made some mistakes. You didn't make a mistake. You knew what was potentially going to happen.
You made mistakes, plural, over and over.
I know. I work right near a 7-Eleven, right here on Greenfield and Oak Park. All day, every day, I see these guys. They could probably bench press my cars. Big, strong, monster guys. At 11 o'clock, I'm sitting in my office watching these guys slinker into 7-Eleven at 11 o'clock, to buy beer and chips, and I'm saying, I don't know if they're buying it on, cards or not, but I guarantee you, they're not working if they're at 11 o'clock, slinkering in there, holding the pants up, and I'm saying to myself, why do I have to support these human beings?
Well, and Bob, here's the thing. When she said that about making mistakes, I understand. Listen, we all sin, we've all made mistakes, we've all done wrong, and I have no problem giving somebody a second chance. But we have created the culture where we say, you get on the bridge card, you get on the EBT, and you stay there forever. I'm not kidding. Last night, I was at a major grocery store. I mean, one of those big hawking ones where you can get anything you want. And the lady in front of me paid with her bridge card, and she bought, this is what was on the conveyor belt. And I'm not making it up. Skip was there. I took out my phone and wrote it all down. A 24-pack of A&W root beer, 2 packs of Oreos, a bag of Cheetos, a big square container of Twizzlers, a case of bottled water, 2 cans of Pringles, a bottle of sparkling grape juice, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, 2 Snickers bars, brownie mix frosting, vegetable oil, and Jiffy cornbread mixes, and eggs, likely for the brownie mix. Most of that stuff is stuff you shouldn't be eating. That's not sustain life. That's good time, happy, snacky food. Sustain life is eggs, flour, milk. That's sustain life. We're not sustaining life anymore. We're creating a system of life. Let's go to Bruce on a cell phone. You're on Talk Radio 1270.
Yeah, I've been listening to you for a bit here, and you mentioned alcohol a couple times, but they're not talking about testing for alcohol, are they?
No, they should. I include that. I think they should test for it, and I think there ought to be a system to say what assets a person has too.
Okay. Well, yeah, I understand the concept of this proposed rule is that people don't want to subsidize other people's recreation.
Right.
Okay, but how do you do that? I mean, people do drink. I mean, the conversation you kept talking about people who are like addicts and had all these problems, but the people who are going to get popped on these tests are people who recreate mostly,
as opposed to
junkies.
Oh, I see what you're saying. The recreate. And Bruce, I don't care, junkie or recreate. If you have enough money to buy drugs, then you have enough money for food. You're just making a poor choice. What we're doing is saying a person can make a poor choice over and over and over again, and I will make sure they have food. Is anybody saying in your life, sure, go out and buy diamond rings and cars and trips around the world, and we'll make sure that you have food when you come back? No. They're going to look at how much money you make a year and say you're not qualified. You make enough that you can't afford food stamps. Well, yeah, but I spent my money on something else. Sorry. But because they don't work or whatever it is, fall below a certain level, guess what? We're going to make sure they still have food. You make choices and you live with them. If you make choices to buy that diamond ring, the iPhone, or something else, then you made that choice and you should do without food for a while. Sorry, that's how it has to be. Now, I'm glad you asked, what's the system? What's the plan? I have a plan. It has many pieces to it, but I think it's common sense. And you can add to it or tell me any part of it's crazy. I'll get some more of your calls coming up. 248-356-1270. 248-356-1270. And after a quick news break, I'll lay out the plan. You tell me if it works for you.
Doc Thompson.